Hello everyone, welcome to the tutorial for the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Lemon Twist album. So I bought this paper about a year and a half ago now. I was absolutely desperate to own it when I first saw it. I could not find the 12 by 12 anywheres at the time. It was totally sold out. So this is all I could find is the 6 by 8 paper pad. So this is what we're going to be using. And then I'm also going to do something else kind of different for me. I'm actually going to make the base out of navy cardstock. So this is, it's called Midnight Navy, and it's Recollections. So I'm going to open it up, and it's 65-pound cardstock. So I am going to make the whole book from 65-pound cardstock. And what I like about it, it's kind of like a dusty kind of, I don't know how to say it, but like it's not like a bright navy. It's more like a muted navy. So I'm really excited because, like I said, I've never made, I think the only colored book I've ever made besides black, white, and craft is a pink one that I did. But other than that, I don't think that I've made any colored albums. So I'm very excited. So the pages, the inserts, and the cover will be this navy color. All right, guys, let us get started. All right, let's get started by creating our cover. So you're going to need 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 7 by 8.5. Then you are going to need a piece of chipboard that measures 2.5 by 8.5. And then you'll also need a piece of your cardstock that measures 4.5 by 10.5. And then for these, I'm just gonna use 8.5 by 11 and just put them in the middle. So you'll have a little over an inch on these 2 sides and a little under an inch on these 2 sides, but it's totally okay. I am just going to wrap this sped up, but if you want a really detailed tutorial on how to do the easy wrap method, I will post the link below to, I think it was episode 1 of my mini album basics, and it's going to give you a really detailed breakdown of how to do this, okay? But I'm just going to speed it up. All right, so now that our album is wrapped, we need to cover this raw chipboard on the inside here. So I have 2 strips that measure 8.5 by 1, and I've just scored them in the middle at 1/2 inch on the 1-inch side. And now we're just going to fold and burnish them. These are also going to give the spine a lot of strength. So once you've folded them and burnished them, you're going to cut, once they're folded, from the score line away diagonally. So just right from the score line, not into it at all. And then the same thing on the other side, and we'll do both the same way. Just like this. All right, then I'm going to put them on here with the points facing inward. And I'm going to put my glue on here first, just on 1/2 inch section. And I'm going to lay it down right alongside my chipboard. It should go all the way top and bottom. All right, and just burnish that a little bit, just with the flat end of your bone folder, and then we'll add glue to this 1/2 inch one. And bring it over and press that one down and burnish it really, 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 really well. Okay, and then use this thick part of the bone folder and just kind of press it into that crease, just like this. All right, so same thing on the other side. Right, so then for this here, we have a piece of our cardstock that measures 8 1/4 by 2 3/8. And that's just going to go in here because our page hinges might not fully cover that black. And I don't want any of it to be showing between our pages. So that's just going to go right there. All right, so that is the book constructed. It looks so beautiful. I just love that, the easy binding method. It just looks, just love it. All right, so let's work on our pages. So our pages are going to measure 7 1/4 by 8 1/4. And on the 7 1/4 side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 1, and that's going to create our waterfall hinges, okay? When you cut your papers, so from your 8.5 by 11, what I want you to do is I want you to cut 8 1/4 first. So just cut that 1/4 inch off of the 8.5 inch side, then flip it and cut it at 7 1/4, and you'll be left with these pieces, okay? So we're gonna use these pieces later, but that's how I want you to cut your base pages, okay? So we are going to need 4 base pages. And like I said, 7 1/4 by 8 1/4. And on the 7 1/4 side, you're going to score at 1/2 and at 1. All right, and do that 4 times, and then we'll get started on our layouts. So all of our base pages will have a large pocket on the front. So the pocket is going to measure 4 1/4 by 9 1/4. And on 9 1/4, you're just going to, on the 9 1/4 inch side, you're just going to score at 1/2 inch, flip it in the scoreboard and score at 1/2 inch. And then we can fold and burnish our pockets. All right, and then take your base page and only fold and burnish that second score line, okay? Just the second score line. Leave the first one for now because it's just going to get in the way. All right, so this pocket is going to get attached along this side of our page. So along this side with the hinge. I always like to burnish from the top too. I find it gives it a cleaner feel. All right, so I've got my art glitter glue. I'm going to get some glue on one of the hinges or one of these little 1/2 inch sections. And I'm going to put it right along that score line all the way to this side. Just like this. We can burnish. All right, then I'm going to open it up. And I'm going to put my glue. Try to stay fairly close to the bottom. That's just to close it up and make it a pocket. And then fold it over. And just kind of let it fall where it wants to. And then burnish again. Just like that. So we've got our base page. And then we've got our pocket on top of the base page. So now I'm going to do the same pocket on the other 3 base pages. All right, so for 2 of our pages, on top of the pocket that we just put on, we are going to put a diagonal type of pocket on top of it in this corner here. So these pieces are the pieces that we cut off on the main base page. So when we cut at 8 1/4 first on the 8 1/2 inch side, and then we cut at 7 1/4 on the 11 inch side, this is what we're left with. So it is 8 1/4 by 3 3/4, and you need 2 because we're going to put them on the front of these pockets for 2 of our base pages. So what I've done is on the 3 3/4 side, I scored at 1/2 inch, and on the 8 1/4 side, I scored at 1/2 inch. And then it's going to create this little square in the corner, and we need to cut that out to make this a pocket. Then what I did is with my ruler, from the score line here, I measured in, I'm going to move this because it all looks like one blur to me. I measured in 1.5 inches from the score line. I marked it 1.5 inches and I did a tick mark. And then from the score line down here, I marked up at 4 inches, and I made a tick mark, okay, from the score line. So not from here, from the score line, I marked up and made a tick mark, okay? So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can either connect them with your ruler and a pencil, and then just cut that off with a scissor, or you could just do it in your paper trimmer, which is what I'm gonna do. So just line those 2 tick marks up and cut, all right? And it'll give you that look right there. So now we have to do that twice because we need 2 of those. So I'm gonna go ahead and fold and burnish on my score lines. I'm really loving working with this navy paper. I guess it must just be a novelty because I never have before, but I think it's really cool. All right, so now get your base page back in with that pocket. So remember, our hinge is folded down, so both hinges. And we're gonna put that right on top of the pocket in this corner. I think that's gonna look really, really cute. So I'm gonna do the bottom first. If my glue will come out. There we go. So put it all the way in the corner and all the way to the edge on this side. Just like this. All right, and then we can open it up and burnish and then add glue to this other flap here and bring that up. And burnish it. All right, so that looks really cool. I really like that. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing to another one of my base pages. All right, so now for the front of our other 2 base pages, so on top of these pockets, we are going to make cute little pockets like this, okay? So I've got this one prepped, but I'm going to show you how to make the other one. So again, using those scraps that we got cutting off of the base page, we have a piece here that is 5 1/4 by 3 3/4, and on the 5 1/4 side, I scored it half, flicked it in my scoreboard and scored it half again. Then I have a piece of my pattern paper that measures 3 1/2 by 4, so 4 by 3. On the 4-inch side, what I've done is, you can't see it because this paper is really busy, but from this top edge here, so this is the 4-inch width, okay? From the top edge, I marked down 1/2 inch and I marked in 1/2 inch, okay? So right there, 1/2 inch and then down 1/2 inch. On this side, I did the same thing. I marked in 1/2 inch and I marked down 1/2. So there's a tick mark and there's a tick mark, okay? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my scissor and I'm gonna cut diagonally across those tick marks. Just like this. So I have like a tag top shape. Then I'm going to erase my lines. Again, you probably can't see them too well, but I can. All right, so now with my pocket piece, I'm going to fold these over and burnish my score lines. Just like this. All right, now I'm going to take my pattern paper piece and I'm going to glue it on to my pockets. So you're going to glue it on, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of a border all the way around, just like this. All right, now I'm going to take my scissor, and with these flaps folded down, I'm going to cut across here, leaving about the same amount as the rest of the border, okay? So just about like this. Then you can open up the flap and cut that piece off, okay? So same thing on this side. Leave about as much as the rest has. And then just cut that off, okay? And that gives us our super cute little tag shape or tag pockets. All right, and I'm gonna glue that to the front here on this larger pocket. So this is just another one of our base pages. So just add glue to just one flap first. And then burnish. That looks so cute. I really like that. And then we'll get our glue on the bottom here and on this flap. And just fold that over. And burnish it. Just like this. So we've got our pocket here. Then we've got our tag pocket here. So let's just glue the other one on the other base page. All right, so on the back of two of our base pages, so I'm going to put it on the back of the ones with these pockets like this. So on the back, we are going to have a large flap that measures 6 by 8 3/4, and on the 8 3/4 side, you're going to score it 1/2 inch. Then we can just fold and burnish that, and then add your glue. And we're just going to center it in there, leaving 1/8 of an inch on both sides of our flap. So all the way to the top, and just leave about 1/8 of an inch on both sides. All right, and then on the top of this large flap, we're going to have another flap that measures 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. And on the 6 1/2 inch side, you're just going to score it 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to fold and burnish that. And that's going to go right here on this page. This is kind of a pretty simple book. It's definitely beginner friendly, I think. Just like this. All right, then we're going to do the same thing for our other base page. All right, now I am going to add a magnet to keep this closed. So I've just got some 10 by 1 magnets here. You wouldn't need to use ones that are quite this big because this is just a simple flap to keep closed, but this is the size I have. So I'm just putting it down about right there on my mat or on my flap, and I'm putting a piece of tape on top of it. Now I'm going to take another piece of tape and put it with the tape side up and just let that catch, and then just bring it over and burnish it, and then that'll be the little closure. So I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. All right, guys, so for the back of our other two base pages, we are going to be using the envelope punch board, okay? If you don't have this, you can just skip this step. So I have a piece of my cardstock that's 4 3/4 by 7 1/4. On the 7 1/4 inch side, I scored it half, flipped in the scoreboard and scored it half, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to line up my score line with the 1.5 inches on here, okay? And I'm going to punch, then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to line it up with the 1.5 inches and punch, okay? Then I'm going to grab my paper trimmer, and I'm going to cut out this center, okay? So just line it up. And just cut that out. If it doesn't cut all the way, just go ahead and snip it and snip it. All right, so you should have that shape. All right, now I have a piece of my pattern paper that's 1 by 6, okay? I'm gonna get my paper trimmer back, or sorry, my envelope punch board, and I'm gonna line up the edge with 1 1/4. And I'm going to flip it in the scoreboard and line up the, I flip it in the punch board and punch it at 1 1/4. Then I'm going to take and again, just line it up in here and just cut that center out. Just like this. And again, just trim it if it didn't cut all the way. You can also use a ruler, like a metal ruler and a craft knife to do this, but this works too. Or even a scissor. You could just use a ruler and a pencil and line it up in between, and then just use a scissor. All right, so let's put this piece aside for a second. And we will get our pocket back in. So go ahead and fold and burnish those score lines. Just like this. All right, so now I've got 2 pieces of my cardstock. So one of them is 4 by 6 1/2, and on the 6 1/2 inch side, I scored at 1/2 inch. And then I have one that's 4 by 4. And on either of the 4 by 4 sides, just score at 1/2 inch. And I'm going to attach them on top of the pocket all the way towards the bottom, okay? So I am just going to miter these just in case my pattern paper doesn't cover it. So I'm going to cut from my score line away, just like this. And same thing on this side. Just don't cut into your score line. All right, now I'm going to grab my glue. Just like this. And I'm going to place it all the way to the bottom of the pocket and all the way to this side. And the other one is going to go on the other side of the pocket. And I'm going to place it all the way over here, all the way to this side. of the pockets. All right, now I am going to add a magnet to close this, but I want to attach it to the page first. So I'm going to grab my page and I'm going to attach it all the way to the bottom and all the way to this side, okay? So my glue first. And all the way to this side. Make sure it goes all the way to this edge here, or else it'll go over the score line on the other side. Pick it up and adjust it as you need to. And then I always just like to make sure my hinge will fold over that. All right, and then open it. And add your glue on this side. And then along the bottom here to make it a pocket. And then just burnish that down. Just like this. All right, so now we can attach our pattern paper up here just so we kind of don't lose it. So it's gonna go right there. So I'm just gonna use the art glitter glue to attach it. Just because it's a smaller piece. And just put it right in the top there. Just like this. All right, so now you can decide for yourself if you want the smaller flap to go on the top or the larger flap. And I think I want the larger flap on the top. So I'm gonna grab my magnets and I'm gonna place one of them about right there. And then I'm going to grab another piece of tape. Not that one because it came off the backing. And place it upside down on this magnet. Let it snap together. And then close it up. Just like that, okay? So we'll have a pocket with a nice big insert. Then we'll have this flap and then it'll open up like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing for my other back page. All right, so that is all of our base pages constructed. All right, guys, so now let's work on the decorative pieces, so the pattern paper, matting, and inserts for our pages that have the diagonal pocket on the front. So let's work on the inserts first. So the first insert we need to do measures 5.5 by 7 3/4, and that's of the Midnight Navy cardstock. All right, then we have two photo mats that measure 5 1/4 by 4 1/4. So one is going to go on the front and one is going to go on the back, and I've already gone ahead and used my little camera stamp to stamp all of these all my photo mats. So I'm going to put one here. And this will all be in the cutting guide for you guys too. All right, and then this one's going to go on the back. So you can put yours top or bottom, switch them up throughout the throughout these inserts. You can put yours wherever. Just like this. All right, then the pattern paper that's going to go here measures 3 1/8 by 5 1/4. And again, you can not put pattern paper if you'd rather leave that for like journaling, or because you could journal with a white gel pen there, or you could put another smaller piece of white cardstock to journal with. So it's the same size here, 3 1/8 by 5 1/4. My glue is giving up on me today. And that one is going to go here, right like this. All right, so that is one of our inserts. So let's put that one aside to dry. So then the other insert measures 8 by 4 1/4. And we have two photo mats that are 4 by 6. So I'm going to put one at the top on this side. And again, you can totally switch up how you do yours. So at the top here, then flip it over, and I'm going to put my other one at the bottom here. Just like this. All right, and then my little pieces of pattern paper measure 1 5/8 by 4. And I'm just going to put them on the top or the bottom, whichever way you decided to do it. And then this one will go down here. And this is a really good place to use the scraps for your, like the scraps that you would have from your cutting. All right, so let's put these two just out of the way here for now. All right, and let's bring our page back in. So let's work on this top pocket here. So for behind here, I have a piece of white cardstock that is 4 by 8, and that's just gonna be the mat for behind this pocket here. Just like this. It's hard to see blue on blue, so feel free to pick it up. All right, then for the pattern paper that's going to go on top of our diagonal pocket here, we have a piece that measures 7 1/2 by 3, and we're just going to lay it on here, leaving an even border on all the sides, an even border of our navy cardstock. And then I'm just going to take a pen or a pencil And I'm going to mark in from this top here about 1/8 of an inch, just like this, just a small mark. And then from down here, I'm also just going to mark in about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to grab my paper trimmer and just lay it in here and just cut across right where those tick marks are. Just like this. And then that is gonna mat right on there beautifully. So we'll just mat that on there. Just like this. So pretty. All right, now for the inside back here, of this pocket here, I have a piece of my white cardstock that's 8 by 2.5. And we're just gonna put that in there just to mat that back section. So 8 by 2.5. Just like this. It doesn't have to go all the way down in there. Just enough to mat it. All right, so then our insert like this is gonna go in this pocket, or you could do this way, however you want. I'll go this way. And then our other insert that we did is gonna go behind here into that pocket. All right, so let's work on the back of this page. All right, so for the back, let's start up here on this flap. So we have one of our 3x4 cut aparts. So you can pick whichever one you want, or if you don't have 3x4 cut aparts, you'll just have to cut a piece of pattern paper that is 3x4. And I'm just gonna glue it to one side of my top flap here. Like this. Again, I'm going to pick this up so I can kind of make sure I'm centering it correctly. All right, and then I have a photo mat that's 2 5/8 by 4, and that's going to go right there. Just like this. And again, pick it up and make sure you can see what you're doing there. All right, and then the back of this is going to be the same thing, the same layers. So one that is 2 5/8 by 4, your photo mat. Put that right here. Remember to remove the backing from your tape. And then we'll have a 3x4 cut apart right there. Just like this. All right, and then for here, again, let's remove this backing. I have a photo mat that is 4 by 5 3/4, and I'm gonna try to center it up so that it's covered when this flap is down. So just put it there and make sure it is covered. All right, and then for the top and bottom of the photo mat, I have 2 strips of pattern paper. So one measures 1 3/4 by 5 3/4, and the other one measures 2 by 5 3/4. Now, depending on how you glued your flap, like this flap onto this larger flap, you might have a different spacing. So what I suggest you do is glue this one down first, then measure those 2 spaces so that you can make sure to get it right for your book, because it could be different just depending on how you glued this flap here. Could be a little bit different. All right, and then this one will go up here. They will measure 5 3/4 regardless though, but you might just have to adjust the spacing of them. All right, and then we'll go under here. So this flap here, this large flap, is going to have a large photo mat, and it measures 8 by 5 3/4, and it's going to cover this entire top flap here. So you can get a nice big photo there. So just layer it on there nice and evenly. All right, and then we'll work on this section down here. So here we have a photo mat and a 3x4 cut apart, and the photo mat is 3x4 as well. So I'm gonna get my glue on here and center it right into that top left-hand corner. And then the same thing for my 3x4 cut apart. Center it into the top right-hand corner. Make sure not to go over your hinges here, okay? All right, then for down here, we have a photo mat that measures 4 by 6. Just like this. Just some simple, easy matting, but it looks so pretty. All right, so that is this style page finished. So we have our front and our back. So now let's work on our other style page. All right, guys, so let's work on our other style page with the tag top pocket. So the first thing I want to do is cover up the back inside of this pocket. So you need a piece of white cardstock that's 4 by 6. And I did stamp it with the camera stamp because it's a usable space for a photo back there. So I did do that. And that'll just slide in behind the pocket here. And just mat into there, making sure you leave your nice even border. All right, then for the inside back of this pocket, I have a mat that's 2.5 by 8. And I'm just gonna put that on now. So it's just gonna go back in here, just like this. Again, just making sure you get your even border. All right, now for the insert for this pocket, it is going to measure 3 3/4 by 7 3/4, and it's going to go right in here. So I have a photo mat that's going to go towards the bottom here that measures 3.5 by 5 7/8. And I'm going to get my glue on here. All right, and then for the top here, I have a piece of pattern paper that measures 3.5 by 1.5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissor and I'm going to cut across the top here like this. And then the same thing on the other side, and then I'm going to glue it on. Right at the top here, leaving my nice even border. Just like this. And then we can cut across, leaving the same amount of space. just like this. And then that's gonna go in here, just like that. You can leave the back blank like I am, so that you can just journal on it or add photos or whatever you want, or you can do the exact same process on the back, okay? All right, now let's move on to the inserts for here. So it's gonna be the same as the other page style. Go right here. And again, it's totally up to you if you want to add these pattern paper layers, because you can always just leave it to journal. All right, so that finishes that page up. So let's move to the back here. All right, so for this inside back here, we have a 4x6 piece that's going to go inside that pocket. Again, you could totally stamp this with the camera stamp for a photo mat spot if you'd like to. That's totally cool. And obviously it doesn't have to have a camera stamp for us to add photos, but just to kind of indicate where they're going to go. All right, then for the insert that's going to go in this pocket, I have a piece of my navy cardstock that's 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. For the back of it, we're going to have a layer that's 5 1/2 by 7 1/2. So this is going to be a perfect spot for a 5x7 photo. Just like this. All right, then turn it over. So this will be the front. I have 2 mats that measure 3 1/4 by 5 1/2. So one is going to go at the top and one is going to go at the bottom. And I know I'm going super fast with these measurements, but again, it'll all be in the cutting guide that I'll link below for you guys to my Etsy shop. So just put one in the top corner or the top of the page and one in the bottom. Then I have a little pattern paper layer that measures 3/4 inch by 5 1/2. And that's just going to go in the center there. Just like this. Isn't that so cute? I love this. Love, love, love it. All right, so that's going to go in the pocket. Now let's work on this bottom section here. So for the front of it, right here, we have a 3x4 cut apart, but I actually trimmed it down so that it was 3 3/4 by 3. And that's going to go right here. Then we have a little photo mat to go beside it that measures 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. Just lift that up so you can really see what you're doing here. That's another thing I love about working with my Fabri-Tac or Beacon glue, is that it doesn't take super long to dry, but you get enough time if you need to move things around. Okay, so all right, then we're gonna go to the back of this flap, and remember to remove the backing of the tape. So here I have a photo mat that measures 5 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I'm just gonna glue that right there. Just like this. Not upside down though. All right. And then here we have another photo mat that measures 3 3/8 by 6. And that's just gonna go right there. Just right in here like that. And then for the front and back of this little flap here, we have 2 pieces. So 3 3/4 by 3 1/4. So they're just gonna go on the front and back of those flaps. Just like this. And then on the front as well, remember to move the backing, remove the backing. There's a ton of photo space just on this one page. All right. So that finishes that page style. And then we did our other page style, and I've already gone ahead and completed the other 2 of the same page styles. So that completes our pages with our inserts and everything. So now let's work on the inside, front, and back covers of our book. All right, so the front and back inside covers are both going to have a large pocket and a large insert that is actually a booklet with lots of space for photos. So I've already done the back, but it's going to be the exact same as the front. So I'm just going to put this aside for now, and I'm going to grab my envelope punch board. And then I have a piece of my navy cardstock that measures 5 by 9.5. And on the punch board, I'm going to line up my score line with the 2-inch mark, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, so it should look just like this. Then I'm going to grab my white cardstock that's 4 3/4 by 8 1/4, and I'm going to line that up with the 1 3/4 mark, and the same thing on the other side, 1 3/4. Then I have a piece of my pattern paper that measures 4.5 by 8. And I'm going to line that up with the 1.5 mark. And same thing on this side. Okay, so it should look like this. So then we'll take all of those little pieces out. And I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. And I'm just going to trim all of these centers out. Right, so I've got all of those trimmed out. So now I'm just going to go ahead and layer them on top of my pocket. All right, now we can fold and burnish those score lines. Just like this. All right, now we can bring our book back in, and I'm going to start by gluing my pocket to the top of the book, and the opening is going to be towards the outside here, okay? And I'm going to leave just a little bit of space beside my spine there. I'm not going to go all the way up to it. So just leave a tiny bit of space beside your spine, like that, and then we can burnish. All right, then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to add a strip of glue along the bottom here to close it up, our pocket. and then all over this hinge here. Bring it down. And just burnish that all on there nicely. Just like this. Especially along your bottom or side pocket here. And then for the inside of the pocket here, I have a piece of my cardstock that's 2.5 by 8.25. And I'm just gonna get my glue on here. And just slide it in behind my pocket. Just like this, just to map the inside back of the pocket. All right, now let's work on the insert. So the insert itself measures 8 by 11, and on the 11-inch side, you're just going to score at 5.5. And then we will fold and burnish, just like this. So on the front of it, I have a photo mat that measures 5.25 by 5.25, and that's going to go right here. Just like this. Then I have a piece of pattern paper that measures 2 3/8 by 5.25, and that's gonna go right down here. So 2 3/8 by 5.25, right there. All right, then for the inside of the booklet, I have 2 mats that measure 5.25 by 7 3/4. So they're gonna go right there to mat the inside. Just like this on this side. And then on this side, just like that. All right, now this is gonna go right inside our pocket here at the front. So the front and the back look the same. So now we can go ahead and add our pages into the book. So you can decide how you want your pages to be. I'm just gonna alternate them. I think I want this to be my front page. So then I would need one of my tags to be the tag top pocket to be the next page, and then the angle pocket, and then the tag top. So that's the one I'm going to start with at the back. So I have already added my 3/8 score tape to my little 1/2-inch section. So now we can go ahead and fold and burnish these little sections. And I'm going to attach it right along the spine at the back, but not over the spine. So just a tiny bit away from there. And I'm just going to remove a bit of my backing, not all of it. Just like this. Kind of bring it out so I can see it on the other side, bend it back. And I'm just going to start right along my spine, but not on it, and you'll have about 1/8 of an inch of space top and bottom. Once you have it placed where you want it, go ahead and press down where that exposed tape is. Then we can take out the rest of the tape and just press it down. All right, so that's the first page attached in. So now I'm going to grab one of my angle pocket pages and fold back that score line and burnish it. And again, I'm just going to remove a little bit of my backing. Now this is going to be way easier to line up because we're just putting it right along that previous hinge. Just like this. Press it down. Pull out the rest of your tape. And burnish. And then we'll do the next one. So just fold down that score line and burnish it. And then remove a bit of the backing. Line it up along that previous hinge. Pull out the rest of your tape. You still have to kind of guide it down and don't just let it go wherever it wants. All right, and then we'll attach our last page. So just press down that score line. Remove the backing. Or some of the backing, I should say. Line it up along the previous hinge. And then just burnish it down. All right. So that is all of our cute little pages attached into the book. And that actually finishes the inside of the book because we've got our inside back front and back covers done. We've got all of our inserts in. It lays so beautifully because of our waterfall hinge. I absolutely love it. So now let's work on the outside. All right, guys, let's talk about the cover, our embellishments for the cover. So I've got quite a few things going on here. So let's start down here at the bottom. So the layer for the white for the front of our book is going to measure 6 3/4 by 8 1/4. And then I've got a piece of the pattern paper that I didn't cut down at all that is 6 by 8. And we are going to go ahead and glue this onto this. Just like so. And I'm going to glue it all the way into this corner here. Just leaving an even white border on the 3 sides. Just like this. All right, then for here, I've got a strip of the pattern paper that measures 8 by 3/8 of an inch. Just a tiny little scrap strip. Don't cut into a new piece for this. It's not really seen a whole lot either. And just kind of place it in there so it has an even border on all 4 sides. Just like this. All right, then from the pattern paper, I cut out this little cluster. And that is going to kind of just go right here. So this is just going to be like if your whatever collection you're working with has ephemera, like bigger pieces of ephemera, you could use that for yours. Just like this. All right, then also from the pattern paper, I die cut the, one of the papers has a big thing that just says soak up the sun right in the middle. So I just die cut that out using a stitched rectangle die. And then I used a scalloped and stitched rectangle die to die cut another one that layers underneath from our Midnight Navy cardstock. I will link these dies below for you guys. So I'm just trying to think. I don't want to pop this up. So let's let's just attach it together. So just use what you have for this, whatever you have in your collection. All right, then I also cut this large tag die. Again, I just used the pattern paper, and then I cut a little tag reinforcer die from the Midnight Navy cardstock, and then I just put a little bit of string through it. And this is going to get attached under here, kind of more to this side. So I'm going to put just some glue on kind of the center of this. Like that. I actually just noticed it. I didn't even mean to die cut this out of the back, but that's hilarious because that was just the back of the other of the pattern paper I used. So now let's put some of our foam tape on the back of this. All right, then I kind of just want to place that right about here. Looks cute. All right, so then I have used a die. So I've used this daisy die, and all of the dies I'm using are from Lala Land Crafts, and I will link them all down below, but I'm using this daisy die. So it actually comes with a stem too, but I'm not using it. It comes with 2 layers for the daisy and then the center, and then it comes with a leaf. So what I did is I cut the daisy die from white cardstock and I inked it, and we're going to do that in a second together. And then I also cut the leaf die from the Midnight cardstock twice, and then the center. And I'm going to put one here, and then we're going to just create another one for down here. So I just wanted to show you guys how I did the inking. So this is just a little scrap cardstock here, and we're just going to ink up the 2 daisy dies. And so I'm just using fossilized amber, and it's a Distress Oxide ink. And I'm going to use my little inking tool, and I'm just going to ink the center. I don't want to get all the way to the edges of the daisy. Just like this. And then we're going to glue these 2 together kind of opposite each other. So make sure that the petals aren't lining up. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this one here in just the center, and then just put it on, just making sure that your petals don't line up because you want some variation on there. All right, and then what I did is I kind of just went around and just separated the petals, like bring it up so that it just gives it some life. Just like this. All right, and then for the little center of the die, I actually popped it up. So I'll get my foam tape. I've got quite a mess going on here right now. Sorry, guys. That's how it gets when we're creating, right? So I'm just going to put a little bit of foam tape on the back of the little center. And then just pop that in the middle. Just like this. So sweet. And then, yeah, just keep playing with it. zhuzh it up. All right, then for the two leaves, what I did is I kind of just laid them down and angled them kind of like this, kind of over top of each other here. And then I'm going to get a piece of foam tape, just a little one, nothing big. And I'm just going to lay it right across them here so it sticks them together. Remove the backing and put it on top of that. Like, how beautiful is this? And we totally just made this together. So this one's going to go right there. And this one's going to go in the top corner here. Just like this. And I think that's so pretty. All right, so I'm just trying to think. I think that's enough dimension. So I think I'm just going to glue these right down. Right here in the corner. Trying not to cover up too much of my word there. And then the same thing for this one. Right up here in this corner. So there we go. There's our cute little cover created. All right, now let's go ahead and add a closure for our book. It doesn't need one when it's laying down, but when it stands up, it kind of doesn't need one either, but it does have, you know, a little bit of a opening. So let's just put a closure on it. So I have this really cute seam binding here, and I got it on Etsy years ago, like years and years ago. So I don't even remember who I got it from, but I'm going to put a little piece of tape kind of right in the center of my cover here. If I can rip it from this angle. And then I'm going to put another piece of tape right where on the other side, on the back of the book, kind of trying to keep those lined up. This is just to tack it down. All right, and then I'm going to remove the backing, and I'm going to take my seam binding and I'm going to tack it right here, just like this. Cut off that excess, and you can obviously use any kind of ribbon or whatever that you'd want to use for this. And then I'm gonna bring about, let's say, about 16 inches to the front and cut that off. And then remove the backing here. And add my seam binding there, like this. And then again, we can cut off any excess. Let's get it glued onto the front here. So I'm gonna use my Fabri-Tac. And glue it right to the front. Just like this. Just open it up and press from the inside. Make sure it's all nice and pressed down. All right, then for the spine, I have a piece of white cardstock that measures 2 3/8 by 8 1/4, and then I have a piece of my pattern paper that measures 2 1/8 by 8, and that is going to go right here on my spine, just like this. So I'm going to grab my glue. And I'm going to glue it right here. Just leaving a nice border all the way around. If it's directional paper, make sure that you are aware of that. All right, and then the back, I've done the same measurements as the front for the base. So I'm just going to glue that on. Just like this. So beautiful. I'm in love with this paper. And we did this whole book. And I have one whole sheet left. And we did the whole book. And this is not that small of a book. I mean, it has a lot of nice photo space in it. All right, so now let's take the seam binding and we will cut it in half right here and then do our tie. And that's the end of our little tutorial. I really love this book. I think it's so beautiful for the summertime. Yeah, I'm really excited about this one and I hope you guys are too. I hope you love the tutorial as much as I did. I just absolutely love it. All right, guys, let me know down below if you like it. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. And I'll link to the walkthrough video for this down below and the link to my Etsy shop for the cutting guide, okay? All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me for another one, and I'll see you all the next time. Bye.